If you're looking for a silver lining, I guess there's probably been never a more interesting time to play the Minnesota Twins. What a day. What a day. What a deadline. There's been a lot of talk, Zach, that there weren't going to be a lot of moves made. There were a lot of moves made. And some very surprising trades, some big names moved. People making their way back to their original organization, leaving the Twins in the case of Carlos Correa. And of course, what everyone here is wanting to discuss, wanting to hear our thoughts, and wanting to hear all of the ways that the Guardians got to not trading Steven Kwan and prior to the deadline, actually trading Shane Bieber. We welcome in Zach Meisel, who before I hit record, he told me he had to run up the stairs. He looked like he had just run 3 marathons, and it looks like it. Are you with us? Are you good?
Do you see the bags under my eyes?
Your bags have bags under the eyes, yeah.
It's been a week, man.
It's just today.
I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But, yeah, it's too bad that it's an off day for most teams today on the trade deadline because, you miss some hug watches, but you also, I'm just imagining, the deadline at 6 p.m. and if you had first pitch at 6:40, Steven Kwan, deadline passes, Kwan stands up in that clubhouse and he does the Leo DiCaprio Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving! I'm not effing leaving! Yeah, that's a movie reference, my dude. But we're deprived of that. We don't get that. So,
would we have gotten that anyway? Would they really have shown that?
Well, no, I'm saying Kwan would have stood up and done that, and you're saying we would not have known that he did that?
Yeah, would we have seen that? I don't know, but I can see it in my head. That's what ended up playing out.
Would he have done that in left field?
Yeah, I mean, he got his waves and his potential goodbyes before the finale this week.
Yeah,
which was a little sad, little sad to watch that. He knew, and we talk about this. Players are not immune. They know exactly what's happening. They know every situation. They know every rumor. They pretend like they don't read Twitter. They don't read X.com. They don't read. They read everything. Put yourself in the position of these players, and it's why, yes, we joke about. It would be a lot more fun to have hug watches and see guys trade clubhouses from one end to another, do the old Ricardo Rincon walk from one hallway to the next. But if we're being fair here in dealing with human beings, I think all the players are much more thankful when they don't have to worry about that sort of thing and they get to process the trade. Or if you're not getting trade, if it's your best friend, if it's a really good friend, a guy you've played with for years, and you've got to see them sent out, and then there could be just a bittersweet moment where that can happen, but you're also getting back something that's really enjoyable or really making your team good, so you're feeling good about that you feel bad about feeling good as your guys walking out the clubhouse doors. We sit here and we would say, there's no better time to have a camera in their face. That's the one time you'd want to be in there to actually get a reaction. But just trying to be empathetic here a little bit, I'm sure every single player that doesn't play today is very thankful for that.
Yes. This is a weird one. So, I mean, I don't know how much time you want to spend on each element of this. I'm actually excited to talk about Paul Sewald, but nobody else is. I just have a funny story about that. But, it's a weird day. Like, there are a lot of questions, right? There are questions about like what this means. I feel like because of the timing of everything this week, like the Emmanuel Clase thing is going to be part of the fabric of all the decisions. The fact that they will welcome the skeleton crew of the Minnesota Twins to town on Friday for the weekend is an element. And also, all of a sudden, that series just became probably as winnable as the Rockies series, right? And like maybe you keep this thing going. Like, there's a lot of weird things. Like, I almost feel like I still don't quite comprehend, like, what this means for the immediate future. But as it pertains to Kwan himself, like, and you alluded to this, he is as down to earth and, I guess, self-aware as I've come across. And I think Cleveland fans, look, he's not Lindor, he's not Ramirez, he's not in that echelon of like guys who if they if they would have traded Bieber 2 years ago like they had planned before he got hurt, like it's not that level in terms of the talent and the production and moving him, and you say, I'm never rooting for this team again. I'm burning the jerseys. I'm doing this or that. Not the jerseys, I guess. Maybe the building. But he's not that level. But I think there's something about just the humanity that he shows. And like even this week when he's like, yeah, you try to block out all the noise, but like it's hard to do that. I've seen all the whispers and the rumors, and he said it's flattering. Like I don't know. There's just some sort of connection with, like, he had a baseball camp this morning, knowing everything that might go down. So I think there's just like a human connection there that maybe he's become a fan favorite for that too, and that's why I think a lot of fans are relieved to see him stay. But there's a lot of questions here in a baseball sense. I don't know what you want to know, what fans want to know about what went down or what didn't go down.
Everything.
Yeah.
What wouldn't they want to know?
I mean, you can imagine it was, all right, later Shane, later Paul. Now we have 8 hours to sit back and wait and see if anyone meets our demands, right? The question I have is, if you really believe you are still a contender this season, you have to make some changes. You can't keep trotting out the same lineup every night. It's just not good enough, right? That means you got to play Manzardo more. He's got to play against some lefties. And you can't just trot out Carlos Santana out there 7 nights a week, right? Like, you have to put your best lineup out there. To me, like, I want to see CJ Kayfus. I think he can help you now and in the future. And I'm talking about this because keeping Kwan to me signifies that you're not completely ready to cut the cord. I don't think trading Shane Bieber and Paul Sewald demonstrably change your chances in 25. Obviously, if you kept Bieber, that would help. But I also think they got a prospect for Bieber that would be better than the compensatory draft pick they could get if Bieber opts out of his 2026 deal and then rejects a qualifying offer, which was always the likely scenario. So, long-winded way of saying I don't think Bieber and Sewell, like, we've telegraphed that for weeks. Like, that's nothing there surprising. The Kwan thing, though, is you could have gotten a lot for 2.5 years of Steven Kwan. They weren't offered as much as they wanted, or else I think they would have done it. But now that you have him here, you need to pick a lane. You either need to act like you want to actually chase down a wild card spot this year, and you need to try to sign the guy. You know, are you going to be able to get as much for him this winter as you did now? I don't know. 3 playoff runs with a guy is very valuable. And like waiting to trade him until this winter just so you could have this August and September with him doesn't seem very wise.
Yeah,
but
you need to take advantage of it. You need to, and I'm relieved that he's still here. We talked about this recently. What I get annoyed with is when they just get comfortable and they don't make a decision one way or another. And in some ways, that's not trading Kwan. You just hold on to him. But take that off the table. Talk extension with him. Figure out a way for him to be here. Take advantage of having another good hitter in this lineup. You got 2 of them. Well, you might have 3 with Manzardo if you actually played him every single day. Take advantage of that. It's nice that you clear the hurdle of not trading him. Now, I had been open to trading him. I had said that previously. More so after the Clase news, certainly. But it didn't come down to trade him just to trade him. Set the clock, and whichever is the best offer you have when the clock expires, just accept that. That would have made me upset. Keep your demands high, as they should be for a player like that, with the market being what it is. And as we saw, all the teams that were the Guardians' leverage, the leverage was that there were so many clubs, you've mentioned them, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the list goes on and on. I think you've even told me that there were some other ones that were in the mix that we didn't even hear of prior to the deadline.
Do you want to talk through those?
Well, yeah, but let me finish just my point here. You need to get past this, but I don't want to give you too much credit for just holding on to the player you already had.
Yeah.
Like that's not the move. The move needs to be you continue to add talent around them, and I mean you're past the point now where that can happen unless you consider Carlos Hernandez being added
Ooh.
via waivers as the big pickup here. You need to continue to add pieces around them, build forward, and they've got the young pieces that, beyond 25, 26, there's excitement here in the position player pool, but we're not totally there yet right now. And partially standing in their way is a guy like Carlos Santana. But also make it so you didn't trade Kwan and now you turn around and find a way for him to stay here. Take advantage of this. You didn't trade him, so now go the other path. Find a way to make that happen. I just can't believe that there's not a way to find common ground here with a guy like Kwan. As you've told me so much about him, and I feel like I've learned through you so much about the type of person he is, I just feel like there's an opportunity there for you to meet him. I don't even want to say in the middle, but for you to find a way to make it work. I just feel like it's possible.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think negotiations have gone very well in the past, but yeah, I mean, this was weird, and I at no point, I mean, so I know the Guardians. Look, here's how it goes, right? Late June, early July, you reach out to 29 other teams. You say, "What are you guys thinking? What might you do a month from now? Who might be available? What might you be looking for?" And you lay the groundwork, because then you get to like the second week of July, and it's all draft, and everybody turns off the trade deadline conversations for about a week. You have the draft, and then you ramp it back up. And things change, obviously. And the whole point of that pre-draft prep is to try to identify like what lane you might be in, what lane everyone else might be in, so you can find a match quickly. Because as you just saw, how many trades came down in the last half hour? 796. That's why I have bags under my eyes trying to keep up with all this, right? It's insane. And you can't just pick up the phone at 5:47 and be like, "Hey, Rays, what are you guys thinking here?" So as they sit back and they contemplate all day whether they can get a Kwan trade done, it's not like they can then be like, "All right, we're gonna keep him." Now, what do we got? 20 minutes till the deadline? Okay. All right. I guess if we're going to keep them, we should be buyers. So let's go find someone who's a seller and let's see what they have. Like that's not going to happen. So you have to do so much homework here. And at no point during this process did I think, yeah, they're probably going to, maybe they're going to add. I think they're linked. I could see them going after this guy to help them in 2025. And there have been times in the past where they're not a buyer per se, but I have heard them connected to or reaching out about certain players who would be seen as buying, even though they're not really contending. So I didn't really get that sense this year. All the teams you would think would reach out about Kwan reached out about Kwan, right? Different levels of seriousness. I think like the Reds called and said, what do you guys want for Steven Kwan? And the Guardian said, all your top prospects. And the Reds said, all right, meet you at Skyline Chili in a couple weeks or something, because that's not going to happen. And the Astros reached out and said, what do you guys want for Kwan? And the Guardian said, well, we want some blue chip prospects. And the Astros said, oops, wrong number. I asked someone, when I heard about the Astros, I asked someone, do the Astros still have prospects? And the reply was, quote, absolutely not. So, the Blue Jays, and part of this too is like the relationships. I wrote about this on The Athletic this week. Relationships matter a lot here. For a lot of the reasons I just described, where it's like you cut out so much of like the BS that takes time. Like AJ Preller and Chris Antonetti know each other really well by now. These teams have worked so much together that like there's no feeling out process.
Yeah, no posturing
Yeah.
here. Let's just get to it.
So like those teams talked a lot this week, and the Padres, it's not hard to figure out what the offer was and was going to be because the Padres don't have much to offer, but they did have Leo DeVree, who is an 18-year-old shortstop, someone the Guardians would covet, but I think the Guardians wanted more. I don't think they wanted to pin all their hopes on one teenager if they were going to trade Kwan. That's why I thought the Dodgers made the most sense all along. The Phillies, too. I think the Guardians wanted Andrew Painter from the Phillies. He's like an ace in the making, and the Phillies didn't want to move him. I think they wanted to build something around Aiden Miller, who's a middle infielder, and, the Guardians love those, but didn't happen. I thought the Dodgers had the diversity and quality of prospects to make something happen, but, weirdly, they kind of made, like, quiet upgrades on the margins. So, long story short, there was never just that slam dunk, let's do this. And so, yeah, it's a weird deadline, right? Like, you're not. It's not like last year where the team added Matthew Boyd because they absolutely needed a starting pitcher to guide them in August, September, and in October, right? And like Shane Bieber could play that role here, but that's not what this team needs. So they felt like that's an opportunity to just cash in on some value, and they essentially paid $7 million this year to rehab Shane Bieber to get him in position to acquire a prospect that they like. And Cal Steven will go to Double-A once he's healthy in a week or two, and we'll see what they do. The scouting reports I've heard, other execs in front offices I've heard a couple times today, like if you just read about him, it sounds like you're reading about Shane Bieber circa 2017. Like, it's kind of crazy.
I know you missed it in the Discord, but I put it in there. There's a video of him, and he's coming preset, and then he gets into his windup and he throws. And it looked, I didn't know if it was just some coping on my part or what. But first I looked at it and I went, man, that looks a lot like Shane Bieber, but right before he throws a pitch. Then looked at it as him some more, and I went, actually, you know what? That looks more like Corey Kluber. And so I just envisioned them looking through, and they see that pre-delivery, and they go, oh, we've created guys like this. Get him. But the thing is, in the case of Kluber, when they acquired him, no one knew who the hell he was. Nobody. No, I mean, there was like very little chatter about who Corey Kluber. Even the team like barely had anything to go on when they traded for him. In the case of Steven, this is a guy that's risen prior to the trade. People were already excited about him, and this is a fun prospect to get into this system. I know people that put together prospect lists are already ranking him as probably the best pitching prospect now within the system. Seeing him as a guy with mid-rotation safety, I mean, 3 or 4 here with maybe a ability to scratch a little bit more towards the front of the rotation if the Guardians unlock a little bit more, get a little bit more refined in things. But this is to take Bieber outside of the disappointment of not being able to see him pitch with the Guardians one more time. If you can do that for a minute and you just look at where they're at today, like we can be pissed off about where they're at, but let's drop in today and think, how do we make this organization better from today onward? Trade like this, I think, makes them much better. Yes, you could have held on to Shane Bieber, and maybe he plays some role for you as you're trying to nail down a wild card spot, and you're only 2 games back in the loss column here, and you're still playing an easier part of your schedule, so it's not out of the realm of possibility for you to make some noise. But whether or not Shane Bieber was going to be part of that, I still, until I saw him on the mound, was just thinking of that as some icing on the top of the sundae here. Although you don't put icing on a sundae, you put icing on a cake, and that's what it would have sounded delicious if he actually pitched, but he's not here yet. And so I can go out, take a guy that at one point I was pretty fearful that you were going to lose for nothing. You weren't going to get any sort of prospect return, or you weren't going to get anything in the draft from somebody signing him because you weren't going to be able to slap a qualifying offer on him. You go from that to actually getting a guy that I'm pretty excited about to get into this organization that knows what the hell they're doing with starting pitching and kind of had some of the foundations that guys like Kluber and Bieber had when they got here. I think they did really well in this trade.
Yeah, I almost think I need more time to just like digest everything. In a vacuum, yeah, good deal. Fine. I don't want to absolve them of everything. Still traces back to the offseason for me, and not doing enough. And there are lessons to be learned here too. Like the Twins, I saw some quotes Dan Hayes was gathering about Twins players like being ticked off about the sell, and part of me is like, okay, well, like, you have control over this. If you play better, then you won't. But that, I also don't want to fully back that sentiment, because I don't think that their front office and ownership have operated with enough urgency either. So, yeah, like I feel like we have this conversation every couple of years where it's like, it's a shame for the Guardians that it came to this point, but
Exactly.
but good trade. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I it is weird though. Like, I guess you just hope that they keep playing the way they've played the last couple weeks, and they can play meaningful baseball into September, as we always used to hear Shapiro and Antonetti say. I don't know.
No, I don't think giving them credit for the trade excuses being in this position. I think these two things can just operate independently.
Yes.
On one hand,
make
you are disappointed.
I want to make sure our listeners.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that I put out on Twitter when it happened. I think it absolutely sucks that we don't get to see Corey Kluber. We don't get to see Shane Bieber. I mean, Corey Kluber could go throw the uniform on again. I guess he's right there sometimes in the dugout. But no, it's a shame that you don't get the Shane Bieber return, and the majestic return of the ace, and like we don't get all that. I can put that aside for a second, and I can say good trade. I think you did as best as you can, similar to how I felt after they traded Josh Naylor. I think that's a pretty good trade to itself. Now, all this other stuff around it, yes, frustrating, and I'm pissed off about it. But like me screaming, I'm mad, and I just like scream that all day long. Well, how do we get better from here? And I think that's what this trade was.
There's a slippery slope here. If you trade Steven Kwan, there's another question that needs to be asked, right? Like, and that is Jose Ramirez. If you trade Steven Kwan, is there a path to contention in 2026? Because you weren't trading him for major leaguers.
Yeah, I think there's a path, but it's severely more difficult.
Right. I don't think Jose Ramirez wants to stick around to try to wait to contend in 27 and 28. So I do wonder how much that played a role. I don't know. They're going to have to do some things that they don't ordinarily do, I think, to buy back some goodwill, or just maybe convince everybody that they can contend both now and next season. Whether that's sign Kwan to an extension, whether it's be a little more aggressive over the offseason. And those are questions we'll be asking throughout. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I struggle to evaluate this, because if they would have made a trade based on what they were asking for, based on their reputation of setting a price and not budging from it, and being really stubborn in negotiations with teams, if they would have traded Steven Kwan, they probably would have gotten a haul where it would have been difficult to yell about it. Especially given, the way this season has played out, and a lot of it, again, has been self-inflicted, and, we're still watching Jonathan Rodriguez as the calendar flips to August, but it just would have meant a completely different path, I think.
Well, sure, but we don't get to know it. We don't get to know because we don't see. But you're right. If they're making that trade, it's because they were beyond even what they thought they could get for him. That they're saying okay to that trade and sending it to the league office only if it is absolutely everything they've dreamed of. We were texting about this. We always say, yeah, this guy's available if we could match this giant offer, but who's really going to do that? So, yes, everybody's available, but really nobody's not everybody's available. In this case, given the number of teams that were involved and the level of prospects that were rumored to be in the mix, like this is the one time that, yeah, you might actually just get your offer met. And that's why they continue to just hammer it home with every single team. Although I laughed, like, and I saw this like with, I think, Dylan Cease. It was, teams are really trying hard. They're trying, like, how do you try
Have you ever
harder?
made a trade where you didn't have to try?
Like, they're really trying harder. They're really efforting harder. Like, how do you do that in a trade? Like,
Just
hurry
more
up and make your
texts.
choice.
Just being annoying and pestering.
But I think the Guardians, as teams were seeing what that price was going to be, and the Padres, they're like, okay, maybe we can make this Miller trade to be the same pieces that we'd have to send to Cleveland. We got to choose one or the other. Okay, let's go with the Oakland trade because maybe they're asking for less than what Cleveland is. But the more teams that started to go into a different direction, like the Dodgers weren't going to sit there and bid against themselves. They were going to say, okay, well, our offer is our offer. And the Guardians at that point didn't have another team to say, but the Padres are trying to give us this, and the Blue Jays are trying to give us this, and the Astros, every other team that was dropping off or didn't have the level of prospects, then it became harder to sell that. So I get why they held on to him. And again, I'm pretty excited that you hold on to him. I don't want to give them all the credit in the world for holding on to the player they already have. But to me, it's more about what do you do from here now. Okay, so you didn't get the big prospect haul that you were looking for. I'm completely okay with the fact that you didn't like go down a notch just to accept the trade just because you felt like you had to. That's good, but then continue to build around him. Make this worthwhile to hold on to him and not sell with that third playoff run tied to Steven Kwan, so that when you turn around and do this in the offseason, you don't get back as much, and you still don't get Kwan, and you don't get the extension, and then I'll be even more frustrated. Turn around and make this a positive somehow.
The point of trading him now would have been you get a haul because of the years of control. So if you opt not to move him now, then you have to follow a different plan. I think that's the concise way of summing up whatever the hell I said at the start of the show. I don't have much brain power left, but
that's all right. This was, we talked about players. They have to instantly react. We put a camera in their face. That's the show for you. And I recognize we're going to come back. We're going to have more thoughtful discussions. I promise later this week over at Patreon. No, we're going to do it, or else I'm going to be really.
Do it. Don't guarantee it's going to be more.
Trade you for a different co-host.
Don't guarantee it's going to be more thoughtful. Yeah, I don't know. I part of me too is just like, what a rotten season this has been. Just, and they never operate this way, but like, give the fan base a win somehow. Just do something. And whether it's now, whether it's this winter, just change this. We talked about it at length earlier in the week, but like, especially with the Clase and Ortiz stuff, that's the other thing. If they had Clase and Ortiz still, with the way that they've played the last couple of weeks, this looks different. Then I'd be like, oh my God, no, you don't need Bieber. Go add a bat and let this.
That's why whoever it was, Matt, I think, on Twitter had said, there's
just Matt, like Cher or LeBron.
You want me to just give his? Maybe he didn't want his name out there. I already quote tweeted it, so I already.
Matt.
That would be awesome if he was, but he had said, speaking to it that it sucks, and you envision playing meaningful games in the second half, and like, yeah, that's absolutely there. And then there's the thought that being in this position, there is a large degree of them doing that to themselves. It's self-inflicted. Having said that, there was another tweet I got, and I can't find where it's at. If I find it, I'll give a shout out. But some of this is out of their hands too. You mentioned Ortiz, Clase. That's how are you supposed to plan for that? We have all these injuries with the prospects that Brito should have been up here. DeLauder should have been up here. Even with them slow playing it, he should have already been up here. And if you don't have all these guys getting injured and losing time, Bazana losing time, like, there's some degree here where they just got bit. They got snake bit even in things that they don't control. But I think at least we should be smart enough. I try to be smart enough to separate those things and say, yeah, there are some things here that were out of your control that could have gone better, and that sucks. but there were also some things that you could have done better and you didn't. And that sucks too. And I think we can acknowledge all of this into the team that's 500 as we sit here today.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of fitting, isn't it? And I think about 2 years ago, and I think about the decision to pull the plug then and pull the plug. I mean, it was Aaron Savali. Like, let's not act like it was some Cy Young winner here, but I thought that trade made a lot of sense. I thought it then. I understood, fans were not happy. I get it. They traded Josh Bell. They traded Ahmed Rosario. Like, those guys weren't helping the cause that season. So it feels different. That year, they never resembled a good team. I feel the same about them this year, too. The difference is, at least that year, like, they had come into the season with reinforcements and thought that was going to work. Bell and Zunino would solidify the lineup, and it just didn't. Just never gained traction. This year, it just felt because they didn't, the lineup looked insufficient from day one. And so it's kind of played out like, is anyone shocked that they're 500? No. So it's just a little different because I think 2 years ago it was, this team was supposed to be really good. What happened? And this year it's like, well, expectations have kind of been tempered since the get-go. And so you trade Bieber and it's not like, how could you do this? It's all right.
And we never saw him pitch this year. It might be different if he had made it back for a couple starts, looked terrific, and then you traded him. There might be more of that, and there is still some of that, but I think you did the best you can given the situation, and I'm relieved that you at least got something from Bieber in this trade. There's still, this tree will continue. It was Mr. Johnson X, by the way, on Twitter. I'm going to give him credit for that, or them credit for that, just because it is Mr. Johnson X. I don't know. Hit me with some Paul Sewald stories. Let's wrap it up on a note where you get to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, so no one cares about this but me, maybe you, but he's now been traded twice in the last three trade deadlines. Both times, completely shocked. So I had a conversation. I've had a couple conversations with him in the last few weeks, and he was telling me the story of his trade in 2023, and he's with the Mariners, and he's got a bullpen coach at the time by the name of Steven Vogt, and the Mariners limp into July. On July 1st, they're 4 games under 500, and Sewald goes home every night, and he and his wife talk about this, and he's like, yeah, I'm definitely going to get traded. Got a year and a half of team control, and that's that. And at one point, Vogt, just making conversation one day in the bullpen, goes, hey, if you get traded, like, what team would you like to go to? And Sewald was like, I think Arizona. Like, my wife and I know it. It's close. We live in Vegas. And we're there every year for spring training. We're familiar. Like, it would be a great place to go. They've got a young child. Then the Mariners catch fire. I think they went 17-9 in July. And they're a game out. They take 2 of 3 in Arizona at the end of the month. Scott Service calls a team meeting. And he goes, guys, so proud of you. What a great month we've had. Like, if anything, we're going to be buyers now. Like, this is awesome. You should be proud of yourselves. You did this. And I think like a day earlier, Sewald had walked into the clubhouse in Arizona, and there's a massive TV, and it's MLB Network, and it says, 5 players most likely to get traded, and Sewald's on the list. And he's like, what? That can't be. We're playing our asses off. I'm not getting moved. And that right there is, by the way, why the Guardians have not had MLB Network on in the clubhouse for a couple of weeks now. But it's July 31st. And Paul Sewald gets a call. It's Diamondbacks GM Mike Hazen. Hey, Paul, we're thrilled. We've acquired you. And he's like, are you kidding me? So he went from, I'm definitely being traded, to I'm definitely not. And then he gets the call that he's being traded. The Mariners were 1 game out. And they made weird decisions, like Teoscar Hernandez was an expiring contract. They kept him, but they traded Sewald. And so he was just completely flipped upside down. He was grateful that it was actually Arizona that he was traded to, and ended up pitching in the World Series. But it goes to show you can never be comfortable. And as we were having this conversation one day in recent weeks, as I'm walking away, I was like, well, hang in there. Like, deadline's, 2 weeks away or a week away. And he goes, oh, I don't have to worry about that this year because of the injury. Because he's like, I'm out for a while, shoulder strain, and never get too comfortable, man.
How many times is he going to have to learn this lesson, old man? So you take the savings, 2 months savings of Seawald, you take the savings of Bieber. So the Blue Jays would be on the hook for the buyout, right? When he doesn't pick up the player option.
Correct.
Next year?
Guardians are sending no money. So, I don't. Why would Bieber exercise the option? He can decline the $16 million option. He'll get a $4 million buyout. There's only a $12 million difference there. He can even if he doesn't pitch well, he'll get more than $12 million. So
even more reason to turn it down because he got traded. Now he can't get a qualifying offer slapped on him.
Correct.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do with all that money? A certain left fielder leading off. Could use that money.
Do you think they'll use it better than they did this past winter when they signed Seawald, Junis, and Santana and Hedges?
They could use it to upgrade their cable package so they could get MLB Network back. Something to think about.
Or they could subscribe to the Patreon.
Which a lot of people have today. A lot of people have joined. Been getting lots of notifications. My phone it's either Rosenthal or someone joining the Patreon. And we'll be back before this week is out to give some more thoughts after Zach has had a chance to sleep.
I think everyone.
And then we'll come back and.
I think everyone just wants to listen to our Tom Hamilton episode. I wish I could tell you how my first post Hall of Fame conversation went with him. Maybe off the air.
I thought that's what Patreon is for.
Oh.
We're all just friends there.